Okay, so I'm going to call the meeting to order.
Okay,
Is that okay?
I'm okay with it.
I'd like to, I'm going to start by introducing the members of the board. And I'd like somehow, how can you get them to be, you see, right now I'm the big picture. I'd like each person to come to the center when I ask them. I'm going to start with Terry Bonzer. Terry, can you, I think if you say something, you'll take over my place. I just want the people here to know who we are. Speak, Terry. I can't hear you.
Hang on. All right. Terry, you got to unmute on your end.
Right there. Yep, I got it.
Okay, good. So this is Terry Bonzer. Thanks, Terry. We also have Teresa Bascom. Teresa, could you say something?
Hello, everybody.
Thanks, Teresa.
Hello.
We have Raylene Shippey Rice. Raylene, can you speak?
Oh, there she is.
You're muted. Could you
Can't
unmute
hear you.
yourself, please?
Yes, I am
There.
unmuted. Hello, everybody. And I'm hiding because I've not had a haircut in 5 months. So I'm hiding.
Okay.
I just got one.
And Peter White, who keeps popping in. Say something again, Peter.
Peter White, you like my haircut?
So these are the 5 members of the board. And this is a full board. You know, if it were not, you would have the right to postpone this meeting until you had a full board. It would be up to the applicants, the 2 applicants. But since we have a full board, we should be able to go forward without any issues.
Yes. And Bonnie, can we have everybody but you mute unless you need to speak? Is that okay?
It's fine with me.
All right. I'm going to mute myself now too.
So I didn't introduce myself. I'm Bonnie Winona McKinnon. I'm the chairperson of the Zoning Board of Adjustment. And I'm going to start with why we're meeting by Zoom, how we're meeting by Zoom. In anticipation of the extension of Executive Order 2020-10, the Nottingham Zoning Board of Adjustment will be holding a virtual meeting, a virtual hearing. Access to the meeting is given through Zoom. Members of the committee have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through this platform. And the public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if necessary, participate in the meeting. So do you want me to read the Zoom, Joanna, do you want me to read the Zoom access link? No. Can you hear me, Joanna?
Sorry, I muted myself and forgot it.
Yeah.
No, it's not necessary because that won't be valid after this meeting anyway.
Right, and if anybody out there wants to join or know somebody who does, they can get the link off the town website.
Yep.
Anyway, so at our hearings, I'm going to start with the public hearings that we are addressing tonight. We have some other business besides the public hearings. But just general rules of the hearings. The applicant will be first presenting his or her case to the board. And the board will decide your request. We don't have to do it tonight, but we can, and we often do, according to your presentation. So you need to present all of the information that you have that will make a good case for your request. These include the 5 criteria, which you're required by law to. I don't see it on the first application, Joanna. Can you help me with that one? I don't see it in my packet. Joanna?
Yeah, Robin Marshall.
Yeah,
Robin and Thomas Marshall.
correct.
You don't have their information in your packet?
I have a packet. I didn't see the criteria that have to be met.
Okay, who's representing the Marshalls tonight?
I will be. Ray Bisson from Stonewall Surveying. This
Okay,
is
Ray,
for special exception.
Yeah,
Yeah.
do you have the materials to be able to put them on the screen? Like, can you share screen?
I can.
Would you like to run the meeting that way, Bonnie? Have him share his screen?
Yes, and do you have a copy of the criteria, because they're not in the packet, and I don't have, since I'm not there where you're usually waiting on me very nicely, Joanna. I don't have them. I don't know if other members got them and I just didn't. I got them on the second case, but not the first.
You don't need the 5
Correct.
criteria because it's a special exception.
We don't need the
didn't-
5 criteria.
I didn't notice it, Bonnie, that they weren't there. Even as I read through it, I didn't see that, but you're correct. I don't see them.
Yeah, there's not 5 criteria with a special exception.
Oh, okay.
There aren't any criteria?
There is an application for a special exception that's in my packet.
I have the application.
Correct.
Well, that's what you got.
Yeah, variances have
information.
criteria, special
But I-
exceptions do not.
Okay.
Ray, sorry, we don't tend to have very many special exceptions.
Oh, that's okay.
So I'm going to read your request to start out. Case 20-005-VA. Wasn't that a variance?
Oh, did I list it with a VA? It's supposed to have SE.
It's
Sorry.
SE.
Okay. Application from Robin and Thomas Marshall requesting a special exception from Article 2, Section E1 of the Nottingham zoning ordinance to permit a new residential lot to be created behind an existing residence in the commercial industrial zone, and that is Route 4. The property is located at 189 Old Turnpike Road in Nottingham, New Hampshire, and is identified as tax map 2, lot 4. So I'm going to turn the floor over to Mr. Bisson. Is that your name? I'm sorry, I'm
Yes.
not.
Yes, it is.
Mr. Bisson, will you please present the case for the marshals?
Sure. Me share this. Get this going in the right area here. There we go. So are you seeing the plan right now?
Yes, I am. Can
Okay.
everyone see it?
Okay, and there's actually the application that was submitted. So again, I'm Ray Bisson from Stonewall Surveying. I'm representing Robin and Thomas Marshall and their daughter, Jessica Maley. Just to go over a little bit of history on the property. The original tract of land was created back in September 17, 1962, which basically was, the blue line coming around, but then it went up through here. So it was like a rectangle. In November 1985, there was a boundary line adjustment that swapped 0.62 acres of land with tax map 2, lot 5 to eliminate the property line from going through the existing residence.
To eliminate what? I'm sorry.
To eliminate the property line going through the house. See, their house is right here.
Oh, yeah.
And the
Okay.
property line was actually going through the house.
Mm-hmm.
So they did a boundary line adjustment.
Bad sighting of the house, eh?
Yeah. So that was done in 1985, and that would basically be, in a sense, the creation of the lot at that point. Today, my clients would like to divide the property to create a residential parcel for the daughter and her family, which would be kind of out behind. In 2019, the zoning regulations were changed, removing residential as a permitted use in the commercial industrial zone. This has dramatically impacted my client's plans for the land. In 2020, the zoning regulations were changed by adding the frontage to backlots into the commercial industrial zone frontage requirements, which can only be used for residential use under Article 4, Section T, backlot subdivisions for single-family homes. At this time, a full survey has not been done. Once the special exception is granted, a full survey will be performed and a formal plan will be brought in front of the planning board. The boundary information is taken from the recorded plan right here, D14349 at the Rockingham County Registry of Deeds. The surrounding area this is a 135-acre commercial property right over here. The next property over is a residential use apartment building.
Mhm.
This is a residential use with a trucking commercial trucking business. Across the street, there's, over in this area, there's 2 residential units. And over in this area, there's the old the dance hall. And then up
Right.
farther is the auto dealer, auto mechanic shop
Meister.
that they
Auto-
actually have the shared driveway.
Mhm.
Farther to the east is more residential properties. Heading to the west, you start to get more into a mix of residential and commercial. And so this particular piece is pretty much right on the edge of where that really falls in town. So as stated previously, after reading the 2020 regulations, frontage in this zone allows for a backlot subdivision as long as it meets the criteria of Article 4, Section T. The criteria requirements are that it has to have less than 200 feet of frontage per lot. The total frontage is 360 feet. The lot needs to have been created prior to March 9th, 1993. Using the new configuration, the lot was created in November 1985, so it meets that criteria. And the lot needs to be a minimum of 6 acres, and this subject parcel is 6.34 acres. So this particular piece of property meets the criteria for the backlot subdivision. Under the permitted uses for the commercial industrial zone, E.1I allows for special exceptions to the use if it meets 3 criteria. Criteria 1 it pertains to infringing on New Hampshire RSA 674:17. This statute encourages the preservation of agricultural lands. The residential use fits this category more than a commercial industrial use. More land would be vegetated, wooded, and left in natural state than would be required for other uses. Criteria 2, the terrain or configuration. In order to divide this parcel, the backlot provision must be used due to the lack of frontage. As well, where the building will be placed, the proposed building would be approximately 500 feet from the front property line, so up in this area. And the proposed front parcel, the remaining land, so this area in here, can still remain in the commercial industrial zone, since commercial being up by the road and a residential lot behind kind of makes sense. Having a residential property here and a commercial building out back doesn't really make a lot of sense. Criteria 3, the neighboring parcels and rural character. As stated previously, most of the parcels in this area are residential use, so an additional residence will not impact the property values. In fact, the commercial property would have more of an adverse impact than the residential uses. The residential use would fit the rural character of the town more than a commercial industrial use would as well. The residential use will require a smaller driveway and entrance onto Route 4 and more vegetation areas such as gardens, lawns, and woods over a parking lot, larger building, and drainage requirements. So in conclusion, based on everything stated, this property meets all the criteria of residential use. If the special exception is granted for the proposed lot to be residential use, then the backlot provision for the driveway can be utilized and will not require a variance for frontage. We do not foresee any additional variances being required in the subdivision. Are there any questions?
Do any members of the board have questions? May I just clarify, Mr. Bisson? You're asking for residential use in a commercial zone only on that second backlot, which would be created by your.
Correct. Right. We're asking for
Not on
the
the front.
proposed. Right. Because right now there's already a residence there and it's allowed because of the time, but
Grandfather, yeah.
it still allows for them to be able to sell it as a commercial property down the road if needed. But right now it's a residence and it can stay that way. But yes, we're only asking for the residential zone for proposed A.
Okay, I just wanted the board to be clear on that. And the driveway would take less of would be not as wide as it would need to be for a commercial.
Correct. And let me clarify one thing. Right now, basically the road frontage is 200 feet. So we just went with 200 feet right now. That's just to kind of show that, okay, we can have 160, but this will depend on site distance. We have to, verify site distance for the state DOT. So the width of this won't necessarily be 160 feet. It's going to only be what we need. So, I mean, if we can do it at 50 feet,
I understand that. You would need the state's approval for that, correct?
yes, we would.
Okay. Does anyone else have questions of the applicant? I wish I could see everybody. I'm gonna ask you people to raise your hand. You go to the participants thing below and you can see in the bottom right, it says raise hand. If you wish to ask a question, please use that feature. I'm speaking to the board members now.
I'm trying to find that raise hands feature for some reason.
Go to participants, click on participants. That's in the bottom middle, just to the left of the chat. Can you see that, Rick?
I don't see anything at the bottom. All of my pictures of people are at the bottom instead of at the top.
I think it's at the top.
Oh, there it is. Okay, never mind. I just need to get.
So if you
Anyway.
were participants 10, click on that, and then you'll get a list of all the participants. And then in the bottom of that window, you'll see 3 buttons: invite, mute me, or raise hand. So you would use the raise hand.
I only see invite on mine.
You don't have mute me or raise hand?
I don't either, Bonnie.
Mine, no, just have invite.
And you clicked on participants.
Yep,
It-
yeah, I got,
Bonnie, for me, it's under the more, on the very bottom of my screen, no, on the home screen.
Yeah.
There's,
Yeah.
next to participants is a button that says more. When I click on that, I see raise hands.
Okay, thank you. I don't have that button on mine. Must be the kind of computers we have. So anyway, I don't see any hands raised from board members. So no one has questions of Mr. Bisson? Anyone have comments? No. Okay, then I'm going to now ask if there are any persons in the public audience who wish to speak for this application. Looking for people wishing to speak for. You can also raise your hand. I can only see 8 people's names though. Must be able to scroll. And there are 10 people here. Okay, now I have everybody. So I don't see any hands from anyone speaking for. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak against this proposal? Does anyone wish to speak against? I don't see any. I don't see anyone. So I'm going to just close this function for now. And
Excuse me, Madam Chair, do we know if all the abutters were notified? And
Peter, we would not have a hearing if the abutters were not notified. Joanna does that.
but are there any present?
I asked for anyone to speak for or against, and if there are any present, we can assume they don't wish to speak.
Yeah, just a suggestion, with these times with the coronavirus and people just not coming out, we may want to add a paper trail to this, like the abutter just submitting a one-line statement saying, I do not object to this special exception, or I do not object to this variance, because I still feel like people are just not in touch with what's going on here. I mean, there's no abutters. There's no audience.
Well, the procedure is not necessarily ours to make up. Most of these procedures come to us from state law. And
Peter, do you have any special concerns that you would expect abutters to raise? I mean, that are your concerns?
Well, my biggest concern is, the process. I just don't feel like the public hearing is involving the public. So it kind of, like I said, I've had these concerns all along, but I mean, it's easier this way. It just doesn't seem, like a public hearing.
But
well, I mean,
that's a choice on the part of the abutters to either.
Well, how do we know? Maybe they just don't know. They, this is a
Well, that's
Tuesday night
true.
during the summer. Who
They-
knows?
That's true at any time.
Yeah.
May I comment real quick, please?
You may.
I've actually been doing, already, this is probably my 12th Zoom planning board meeting. And there's actually been more abutters that have been representing or on that are either for or against projects. And I think it's because it's been easier for a lot of them.
I think you're right.
So I think when some of these you start to get where there's not that many people, it's if no one has issues or if it's not really a very big concern. I don't think it's necessary that they don't know that it's happening or they can't log on or dial in.
So
I have a,
let me just say that we do not create the application. We do not create the procedure. We might tweak parts of it, but I believe it's dictated to us and I don't think we can change it. And we certainly can't change it in the middle of a hearing.
No, I agree, but I mean, there's all these emergency procedures that we're operating under. It just seems like it's, leaving out the public. So that's just my concern.
Raylene,
I just want to clarify, this is a piece of property that was originally owned by a person. It is now being subdivided into 2 lots. It doesn't matter that there's a familiar connection. It is 2 distinct lots. And that in the future, anything could happen to either lot in regards to commercial, agricultural, or residential.
if we change the zoning, if we allow, yeah, you're right, it would still remain in the commercial zone and they would be there by special exception.
Okay, so in the future, if someone wanted to do a commercial venture on that back lot, it would not be required to have a special exemption to convert it back to a commercial?
I'm not sure of the answer to that. I own a property in Lee that has a special exception on it. And it's my understanding that I can just abandon that at any time and revert back to residential in my case.
Right, because it's now a commercial, but if this residential if someone bought that lot and wanted to convert it to commercial,
They wouldn't
It
have to
wouldn't.
convert it. They could just drop the special exception, I believe. I may be wrong, I'm not a lawyer, but I believe that's my case. In fact, I was talking with the Lee code enforcer today about turning the office portion of it into a residence.
and the front part of it, which is now a residential, would be under the same, but that's not a special exemption
Special exception.
or special exception, sorry, yes.
No, that is grandfather. That has been there since before that area was made a commercial area. That's pretty recent that was rezoned commercial.
So
Yeah.
is it considered a residential, agricultural, or commercial?
It is now in a commercial zone, but it is a grandfathered residential use in a commercial zone.
And could remain that way without requiring any special,
Right, like they could come along and rezone your house into some kind of business zone, and you would not need to go before the town in order to keep living there.
okay, all right, thank you.
Anything that's in place pretty much has to stay in place when zoning ordinances come in. So we've had zoning in Nottingham way longer than Route 4 was declared commercial. I mean, Terry, do you remember when it was? He's been on the board a long time.
You mean when the zoning came in or the commercial?
When Route 4 was made commercial. Wasn't that pretty recent?
That was pretty recent. Yeah, I think it was in the 80s, maybe 90s. It wasn't
I
that
think
long.
90s and the zoning was in the late 60s or early 70s. So this house was already there when the zoning was changed, is my point. So in a way, to me, it's already grandfathered to be residential, but I can see where the town is dotting its i's and crossing its t's. You see what I'm saying? It's already a residential use.
Right, that's my point, a long-winded way of
Yeah.
getting to that point, thank you.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions? Does anyone on the board have any more opinions or concerns that they'd like to raise at this hearing? If not, I'm going to ask for a motion on this application.
Madam Chair,
Teresa,
I move that we approve the application from Robin and Thomas Marshall requesting a special exception from Article 2, Section E1 of the Nottingham zoning ordinance to permit a new residential lot to be created behind an existing residence in the commercial industrial zone on Route 4. The property is located at 189 Old Turnpike Road in Nottingham and is identified as tax map 2, lot 4.
I'll second.
Jerry is seconding that. So a motion has been made and seconded to approve the application for a special exception. Since we don't have any criteria to go through, I'm just going to call for the vote. I'm going to ask you for a voice vote, and I'm going to go first. I'm the chairman. I vote to approve the motion as read, which is to approve this application. Terry, can you be next, please? Oh, no,
I vote to approve it.
Peter. I can't hear you. I think you've got to unmute yourself.
Aye.
Thank you. Yes, you voted yes. Teresa,
Yes.
Raylene. I can't hear you.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so you have a unanimous approval, Mr. Bisson. I am required to remind you that the public or any person has 40 days in which to appeal our decision. So if you start your survey and other work, it's on you, those first 40 days could bring an appeal. Although I don't see a big lot of objection here to this request tonight. But that's up to you.
Right. Thank you all for your time and have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me get off of here so Scott can actually get
Right,
on.
can you take down your, there you go.
There we go. All right. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can't hear you, Joanna.
You're welcome, Robin. Bye.
The next case. So Joanna, would you mind reading this, or Teresa, if you have it, because I only have the one that did the Robin and Thomas Marshall twice. Need the language for the second case. On my agenda, it's a typo or a misprint. The next case is from Mr. Lai, I think, or Lay.
You want me to read it?
Yes, would you please? Because
Okay.
I don't. Oh no, I don't have the I don't have that on my agenda.
Okay. So it's case 20-009VA, application from Elmer Lai. Is that how you say it, Mr. Frankwitz?
Play is the way I pronounce it.
Lay, okay. Trustee of Shore 49 Realty Trust, requesting a variance from Article 2, Section C1A of the Nottingham zoning ordinance to permit removal and replacement of an existing residential home. The property is located at 49 Shore Drive in Nottingham, New Hampshire, and is identified as tax map 68, lot 42.
Thank you, Joanna. So is there an agent for Mr. Lay?
I am Scott Frankowitz.
Thank you, Scott. I'm giving the floor to you now to make your presentation, and please, when you get done with your explaining your maps and so forth and your application, don't neglect to go over the 5 criteria. We require the applicant to make
Okay.
the case, because you have to meet that 5 criteria. If you meet them, we're required to grant you your variance if we think you meet them.
Right.
So
Okay.
take it away.
Scott Frankowitz from New Hampshire Land Consultants, representing Elmer Lai and the trust on his property at 49 Shore Drive. There is one thing I'd like to ask Joanna to start. I think the denial article and section was incorrect. I think it should have been Article 2, Section C 2B instead of 1A. But I can go along with my presentation unless you wanted to talk about that to start off with.
The denial states, Each lot shall have a minimum contiguous frontage of 200 feet, including a curb cut for approved access, except to the extent with regard to frontage of back lots approved in accordance with Article 4, Section C, Section T. Did he submit the wrong denial letter?
Section, or Article 2, Section 1A is different language. It's 2B is the language that he used.
Okay.
But the article and section is different.
Okay. I just take from the denial letter.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's up to the board what they want to do about that.
But section 2, number 2B talks about a special exception. So you'd have to have done special exception paperwork and not variance paperwork. Right? C2B? That's not what we're working off of at all. And this doesn't say anything. I mean, my denial, the copy of the denial letter I have in front of me is Article 2, C1A. It does not say to
If I could, I just want to make sure we get it right. So if I could share my screen, I'll show you the section that seems to be the problem.
Okay.
Can everybody see that?
Yep.
So the denial was for Article 2, Section C1A, which is just mentioning single-family residences, associated dwelling units, where actually 2B is the exact language that Dale had put on the denial letter. So the language is correct, but the stated article and section appears to be wrong.
So it should read Article 2, C2B.
Yes, that's what I think.
Okay, so, but the language that he used in the letter is actually the language of Article 2, Section C2B, correct?
2B, yeah.
So he used the right language, he just put the wrong article number. So I think if both were wrong, I would have an issue with it as far as the notice goes. But I'd like other board members to chime in. I think where he used the correct language, is it clear? I mean, what do you all think? You know, people that wish to object need to know what we're granting a variance for.
Okay, I can do the presentation then, and
I just want to ask the board members, do you think we should go forward, I guess? Or postpone it and have the notice, have everybody re-notice? I think, and this is where legal advice would be helpful, I think because Dale used the correct language of the word, that we can just overlook the fact that he used the wrong title.
Bonnie, I agree with you. The article numbering may be wrong on here. In fact, it refers to the old zoning ordinance. So it's not that it's incorrect. It's incorrect for the updated zoning ordinance, not the old one. So I'm okay with this going forward. Just my 2 cents.
I'd like to hear from everybody. Thank you, Teresa. Mary, what do you think?
See a problem with going forward.
Okay. Really?
I would argue that we need to be precise and consistent in regards to this. We
Peter?
need to ensure that all pieces fit correctly.
Yeah, I'm comfortable in going forward, you know, although I agree that we need to make sure the
We're uncomfortable. Sorry.
building inspector has a copy of the new zoning ordinances.
He does.
So I guess we have 3 people who don't mind going forward and 2 people who object to going forward. This is not an issue that we've encountered, at least in my time on the zoning board, and I've been on the board quite a while. But it seems to me that the language is more important than the title. That's where I would fall on it. And if we postpone it, that's another whole month before this gets heard. The town will have to pay to re-notice everybody. I don't know how many letters there were. Which is not the reason, that I'm favoring going forward. I just know that in a lot of things, for example, if you write a check and your numbers are wrong, it's the language on the check that has precedent. Really,
If you write a check and the numbers don't equate to the language, it doesn't get passed.
does, it gets cashed with the,
Well, at least in my experience, it doesn't pass. So
I
think there's some discrepancy on this.
I just had the experience last year with a tenant. Both of the banks told me it was the language, the written language that mattered, not the numbers up in that little corner.
Right, yeah, that's what my experience has been.
Yeah. So, I wish I knew, the exact answer, but I think if we go forward and somebody wants to take an issue with it, they can. Like, review to take it forward, ask us to rehear it. But I
personally think that, the abutters read these notices. I'm not sure they even know what the articles and sections are, and they just know something's going on, and
I might agree with you. I think the language would mean more to them than the article number. I mean, I think it could be looked at as a typo. Raylene?
I'm just concerned that who knows what happens in the future, that we may be making a decision that at some point the persons who are involved may be put under undue stress because someone else raises the issue saying this was not consistent.
Good point. So I'm going to throw it back to the applicant.
I'm talking about down the road when things are already, the house is built and
I hear
everything's
you.
done.
I hear you. However, that decision can be made by the person in front of us who's acting as an agent for the owner. It means they stand in the owner's stead. If they want to take that risk, then I think it's reasonable to let them. I don't know. Do you agree with that, Terry?
yes.
Do you agree with that, Teresa? I can't see you.
I again don't see any issue with it because the language is the same. It's just the article and the numbers that are incorrect. And it's only because the zoning ordinance was changed last year.
So you thought he was looking at an old ordinance?
I'm not saying that Dale was looking at an old ordinance. I'm just saying that where this wording has been Article 2, C1A for so long, and now it is not, and that is the only issue, is that it's not Article 2, C1A right now.
Thank you. Mr. Frankowitz, is that how you say your name? And I'm not looking at it, so I can't see you.
Yes, it is Frankowitz, and
So I'm going to leave it up to you, sir. Do you wish to go forward with this?
yes,
glitch?
I see no problem with going forward with it.
Okay. And we will proceed. And
May I say
Joanna has
something,
read
Madam
it,
Chair?
and it's now you may.
Thank you.
Joanna?
If it makes the board, am I muted?
No, we can hear you.
Okay. If it makes the board comfortable with the notice of decision, I will make a note in bold that the public hearing notice had the numbers incorrect and that these are the current corrected numbers.
And maybe mention that the ordinance, that the numbers just changed.
Okay. Will do.
Right.
That is what the board desires.
Raylene?
Is this something that requires a motion of any kind to ensure that the decision or a statement? or
Probably not a bad idea that we make a motion to go forward in spite of the glitch or the typo in the article title. Can I have a motion?
Madam Chair,
Teresa?
I move that the board move forward on the application from Mr. Lai, even though the article stated is not the correct article due to the zoning ordinance change from last year. I ask that the the zoning clerk please make note of this in the notice of decision.
I'll second that.
A motion has been made and seconded to move forward with this application tonight in spite of the typo in the article title. All those in favor? Let's vote by voice because we're on Zoom. I'm going to vote affirmative. I vote in favor of the motion. Terry?
I vote in favor of the motion.
Raylene?
Nay.
Teresa?
Aye.
Peter, I can't see you. but-
I'll vote aye.
So 4 yes and 1 no. So the motion carried. We will move forward. Mr. Frankowitz, please take the mic back.
Okay.
You just have to speak.
Thank you for that discussion and going forward with the application.
You're welcome.
As I said, I'm here representing Elmer Lai. He owns 49 Shore Drive, tax map 68, lot 42. Has about 48 feet of frontage on Shore Road. And it's a .33 lot that was created back in 1957. And what he wants to do is improve the property. Currently, what's on the screen is what's out there. I'll zoom in a little bit.
I can only see the zoning thing, so we have the zoning, at least on my computer, we have the zoning ordinance up. Are you gonna give us a map?
Yeah, I thought I shared it. I'll stop share and share again, I guess. Can you see maps now?
Yes, I can see half of 2 maps there.
So currently what's out there is an existing house here in red, partially over the 20-foot setback. There's some type of leach field out there, unknown, and a well, and then a bunch of landscaping done up on the lake with a dock. What Mr. Lai would like to do is remove this house and put up a new house, as well as, of course, he'll have to replace the leach field and get a shoreline permit, septic design approved. And we'll meet the non-conforming setback regulations of 20 feet, all the places. So I'll go on to the proposed plan, and this shows the existing, and then this blue line is a buildable area that he is looking at putting the structure in. He does have some preliminary plans done. He doesn't have them final yet, but that's where the house will go. It will be pulled back from the water a little bit, both the house and the deck. And the leach field will go in the back. It will be some type of innovative system, probably like a geomat system or something like that, which is still have to be approved by the state. And of course, the shoreline permit has to still be approved. The property has been fully surveyed. So this is an accurate plan of what's out there. And he's asking, the variance he's asking for is the less than 200 feet of frontage on a class 5 road. This is a private road. And I can go into the 5 criteria if you like now, or if you have questions on the plans.
Let's pause and see if the board members have questions on the plans. Does anyone wish to?
I had a question. So are you planning on building outside of the original foundation?
It is out, yes. And we're building outside. And the way I understand it, talking with Dale, was if we don't build in the same footprint, then we have to adhere to the 20-foot setback for non-conforming lots of record. So the building will conform to the 20-foot setback to all property lines. We are actually pulling it in. If you look at the plan on the right side, as you look at it, the red dot is the existing house, which is closer than 20 feet. The proposed house will be further away from that property line, and all the other setbacks it will meet as well. The 20-foot setback.
Are there other questions?
I don't have a question, just a comment.
Mhm.
Just so you're aware, the locus on the plan for the notes, number 1 is totally incomplete. It just says the purpose of this plan is to, and then nothing is listed there.
Okay.
Just wanted to make you aware of that. I figured out what the purpose was, but just for
Right.
your information, okay?
Thank you.
I had another comment once again concerning the abutters. I mean, it looks like the house he's putting in there is going to be a lot bigger and wider than the one there now. And that's already a very crowded neighborhood. I mean, these are like 1/4 acre lots, 1/3 acre lots. So I would be very interested in hearing from the abutters, you know, if they don't mind having a house, you know, bigger house. I think it's going to, you know, affect the neighborhood and could affect their property values. So,
We'll get to abutters when Mr. Frankowitz is done his presentation. Right now, he's going to continue unless other board members have questions about the map and the information on the map.
Actually, I do have a question, because here it says 0.31 acres
What does here mean?
on the site map that he's showing us.
Okay,
And I thought what I read earlier was 0.33 acres. So I'm just asking for clarification, 0.2 of an acre.
I would like at this time to remind the board that we are hearing a request for a variance to the road frontage. We have other professionals in the town
All right.
take care of other issues like,
I was just wanting to make sure that everything is accurate as possible to preclude any possible issues arising. That's fine.
right. And the criteria call for us to wonder if it's in the public interest, if it's going to affect property values, if it's going to change the character of the neighborhood. That's all among the 5 criteria. So I
Peter?
think it's proper to ask those questions.
I think it is proper to ask them at the proper time. He hasn't gone through the 5 criteria yet, so please give him the opportunity to speak on those issues. Right now, you were to be talking about the map.
My other concern is the well radius, once again, goes over onto 2 adjoining properties, so that's going to limit their property rates. Anytime you have a well radius, they can't put their septic in that area now.
Actually,
well-
Is he drilling a new well, Scott?
he hasn't decided yet, but actually he will have to, with a new septic design, have to do a well release, which releases his rights to any of the abutting
And would you-
overlaps.
And would you speak to the advantage of a new septic system for the lake ecology?
Right, the existing system is it is in the back of the house, so it's a good location, but it's an unknown system. The tank is, I think, a 500 or 750 gallon tank. It's very small. And the tank will have to be upsized to a 1,250 gallon tank. And the leach field, which is probably what's going to work here, would be not necessarily a Clean Solutions, but another product the same company has called a Geomat. And it's a small footprint. And it will only be approved as a 2-bedroom residence because of the size of the lot. The state will only approve a 2-bedroom septic design. And we're putting it on the back side of the property as far away from the water as we can, because of it has to still adhere to the 20-foot to the property lines for non-conforming uses. I believe Dale told me that leach field is considered a structure as well. So it's back away from the water as much as possible, and it's using current technology. I think was approved last year.
And are you a surveyor, sir? Or
I'm a surveyor, a septic designer, and a real estate agent.
So what I wanted to ask is, jumping back to Raylene's question about 0.31 acres or 0.33. This lot area on this map, is this from a survey that has been more recently done? Is the other one from the tax map? Can you speak to that
I will
discrepancy.
have to check that.
0.34.
This is a recent survey. We did it last fall.
And
Partly this spring.
that's your number, 0.31 then, from your recent survey.
I will confirm that to make sure either it's 0.31 or 0.32, the 200ths of an acre will get corrected.
It's possible that the previous number could have come from the tax card.
Correct.
And tax cards are notoriously loose on these kinds of details, especially from an old lot of record that might not have been surveyed at all.
And the area is based on a very detailed survey of the reference line as well.
Mhm.
So the 0.33 may have not taken that into consideration.
Okay, now can you go forward with the rest of your presentation?
So what we're asking for is the variance for the frontage, Article 2, Section C, 2B. And I will walk through the 5 criteria. The first criteria is a variance is requested for Article 2, Section C, 2B of the zoning ordinance to permit to remove and replace an existing home. And in the supporting information, the variance would not be contrary to public interest. There is an existing home on the parcel and the applicant is proposing the same, a residential house. The spirit of the ordinance is observed. The parcel is currently used as a residential home and there is no change from that. So the ordinance, it's a residential area, we're putting a residential home. Substantial justice is done. The applicant is replacing an existing house in disrepair with a new home and a new septic system. 4, the values of the surrounding properties are not diminished. The value of the surrounding properties will not be diminished as the applicant is proposing a new home. Number 5, literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would result in an unnecessary hardship. A, for purposes of this subparagraph, unnecessary hardship means that owning to special conditions of the property that distinguishes it from other properties in the area. No fair or substantial relationship exists between the general public purpose of the ordinance provision and the specific application of that provision to the property. And the existing parcel was created in 1958. Looking at some maps today, I think it's 1957, with only 47 feet of frontage. And since that time has been a home on the parcel. If the parcel was required to have the frontage currently in the ordinance, this parcel would be non-buildable along with many other parcels in town. 2, the proposed use is a reasonable use. The current use is residential and the proposed use is residential. Those are the 5 criteria that I submitted. I believe that is the presentation and I can answer any questions anybody may have.
Thank you. Do any board members have questions on this part of the presentation? I cannot see a couple people, so I can't see Teresa. But assuming no one has questions, I'm going to ask if there are any members of the public who wish to speak for this proposal. Is there anyone present? I don't know who's left present, 7 people. That's 5 board members. Joanna and Scott Frankowitz probably. Doesn't look like we have any members of the public present. Nevertheless, I'm going to ask for it in case anyone's just chiming in. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak against this application? There being none, I'm going to close the public hearing and allow the board to go into deliberations. Does anyone wish to speak to the application just among the board?
Well, I'll reiterate my concerns that they're putting in a bigger house outside of the original footprint, and that is going to impact the neighbors. And I'm concerned that the abutters are not present. There's no public present. And it's hard to move forward with these without, knowing what the abutters think. It's like, the neighbors are being ignored, through our process. And we don't know what their input is. Once again, I think we need to have some way of determining the abutters' feelings on things like this. We can't just force things into people's neighborhoods without them having a say. And once again, these small, tiny camp lots, putting big year-round houses on them is impacting the environment. There's only one direction that septic effluent will go, which a camp is like 3 months a year, year-round house is 12 months a year. It's going to go right into Pawtucket Lake. And the more of these we approve that aren't in the public interest, you know, the long-term detriment is going to be impacting the lake residents and the butters and ultimately the town, you know, property taxes. So once again, I have a hard time moving forward without even the abutters having a say on this.
Thank you,
That's
Peter.
my concern.
Does anyone else wish to speak to the application? Raylene?
I think that the abutter issue is if the butters were informed of tonight, and they did have to be, then it is up to the abutters to decide whether they want to step in. I have similar concerns regarding the septic system. However, modern septic systems seem to do a much better job than the old leach fields did that expended so much further. So I will trust that somebody will look at that septic system and make a decision that is adequate. Not adequate, but that it is protecting surrounding properties and the lake, most importantly. But I do have a question about the 47-foot frontage, and I hear your argument that are there a number of properties on the lake that have this similar problem, that there's not
All of them.
All of them.
Almost all of them. There are probably hundreds of them.
It strikes me that most of them are under the same issue, that it does not meet the criterion.
Almost all of them need a road frontage variance in order to do anything. And they're just
Is there any kind of, and I haven't heard it, but is there any kind of limit to how small that frontage can be before someone would say that's a little smaller than?
You have to realize that most
Nothing.
of these lots are grandfathered. They were done before zoning. Peter White's relatives did a few of these neighborhoods, didn't they, Peter?
Yes, but they were not intended to be year-round houses. They were intended to be camp lots. Some people put tents on them. They weren't intended to have year-round McMansions on them.
Nevertheless,
It's destroying the character of the neighborhood, destroying
My
it.
point is that these non-conforming lots were in place before the zoning ordinances went in. So is this sense a grandfathering?
correct. These lots are all grandfathered. The lots are too small. The road frontage is too small. It is the nature of a lot of development that was done on Pawtucket Lake. And
But
now,
the permitted, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
yeah, please don't interrupt me. You
Go
may
ahead.
ask me to be recognized and I will recognize you when I'm done speaking or whoever else is speaking is done. So these are now all grandfathered uses, sizes, road frontage, and so forth. And I believe, you know, custom has evolved such that the state allows improved septic systems because they are usually better for the lake than what was originally done in the 50s and 60s. I
Right.
mean, now they're approved by, I mean, the state has to approve any septic system that's within so many feet of the lake. And I imagine this is one of them. So they are scrutinized by experts. Did you wish to speak to that, Scott?
Yeah, and the septic design, the town, Dale reviews it and has to approve it, and then it goes to DES and they have to approve it. So it gets reviewed twice, and then the installation of it gets reviewed as well.
Correct. Does anyone else wish to speak? Peter?
Just a couple comments. When these old subdivisions were approved, the whole, our zoning and regulations were different. The town would never have approved a year-round home on one of these little tiny lots. They were meant, once again, it was like a campground. So I think the town is encouraging the development because it increases property tax revenues, but it's destroying the character of the lake community. And the other question I wanted to raise is about DES. I actually asked them to come out and look at White's Grove over some Shoreland Act violations. They wouldn't even come out from Concord. They're cutting down all these trees right along the lake and they're making better views for these McMansions are putting in. They won't even come out from Concord. So I think it's up to we, the town people, the ZBA, and the planning board to oversee what's going on in our town. Every time you say, oh, the state will take care of it, it's hurting our town because the state isn't scrutinizing these things.
The state is scrutinizing septic designs.
Well, they're just rubber stamping
I have
it.
the floor. This
Everybody is rubber stamping these things.
Please wait your turn.
I was speaking.
I want to address your first statement that these were approved before whatever. They were not approved by the town ever. They didn't need to be approved. There was no zoning. There was no process to approve them when these were done. So it's not like the town approved it to be for tents. It was done by landowners and we now live with it and do the best we can.
But they're approving it, although we have 2-acre lot regulation. So once again, I think there's a message that we should just go along with all these things. And I think it's hurting our neighborhood here. Have any of you done a site visit? Have any of you done a site visit?
Peter?
I know exactly where it is.
No, you have to come and look. You can't just look at a piece of paper and make decisions.
I rode many times. I know exactly where it is.
Well, come down Whites Grove Road and see how much our decisions have changed the character of this neighborhood. You'll be shocked. All the damage that has been done.
Please confine your remarks to this case. Please.
Well, it's related. It's all these Pawtucket Lake variances that you all are granting. They're all having an impact.
Okay.
And your butters know nothing about it till it's done.
Several times, please try not to, repeat yourself, and I'm going to
Your
give.
butters are being left out. And yeah, you can send them
The
something in
butters
the
are not
mail.
left out. They are not left out. They are notified of these hearings.
Where are
and
they?
Show up if they want to.
Nobody ever shows up.
You have just lost the mic to Terry. Be quiet. Terry, stop it. My dog doesn't like.
Yeah, no, I just, I just had a question for Peter. Peter, is your lot 2 acres?
Yes, our lot's about 15 acres.
Your lot, the lot you're on is 15 acres?
Well, the collective lots, yes.
Oh,
Yeah, but the lot you're on, how big is it?
Well, I don't know, it's kind of connected to all the others.
Yeah, but it's not, and you're not living in a tent, right?
Correct.
You're living in a year-round.
We're grandfathered in, yeah, it's been here for 30, 40 years. We're not trying to build a McMansion here.
And how new is your septic?
My septic is, 1970s, so I guess it's really modern.
Oh, Peter, I don't think that's, I mean, you shouldn't be throwing stones if you're,
No, we have no problem with our septic, but you put a year-round house right on the shore, where's that wastewater gonna go? There's only one place to go, the lake.
It goes down.
Down where? Into the groundwater.
I'm
It's common sense.
going to jump in here and say that is not the business before the board tonight. The business is road frontage.
Well, it should be the public interest, which we tend to ignore here. The public interest is our business.
Please do not interrupt me, Peter. Please try to keep your comments.
Paraphrasing what I'm saying.
I'm not paraphrasing at all. I'm saying
Let's think of the public interest for a change,
we move forward.
rather than being a rubber stamp.
We've already offered abutters and the public a chance to speak. There's nobody else present.
Nobody.
If the board has no further deliberations, I suggest it might be time for a motion.
Madam Chair,
Teresa,
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the application from Elmer Lai on 49 Shore Road, map 68, lot 42, for their variance request from Article 2, Section 2C2B of the zoning ordinance to permit them to remove and replace an existing residential home with a lot that has less than 200 feet on a Class 5 road.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion before us. We have the 5 criteria, which sometimes we voted on them. I think we should vote on them as a way of approving or not approving this application, this motion. Is that agreeable to you, Teresa?
Whatever you prefer, Bonnie.
I just think it makes it clearer. If the 5 criteria are approved, then we have to grant the variance, and if they're not approved, then we have to deny it. That's the law. So I'm looking now for my copy of the 5 criteria, which I know I had here a minute ago.
Bonnie, it's on their application.
Yeah, I know, I just had to get to the right page.
Okay, it's page
Okay.
4.
Beginning with criteria number 1, the variance would not be contrary to the public interest. I vote in agreement with that statement. Terry,
I agree with that statement.
Peter,
Nay,
excuse me?
nay,
Thank you.
I don't agree with that statement.
Teresa,
I agree.
Raylene,
Nay.
so that's 3 yays and 3 ayes and 2 nays. Criteria number 2, the spirit of the ordinance is observed because, well, I don't have to read the because the parcel is currently used as a residential home and there'll be no change from that. I agree with that statement. Terry,
I agree with that statement.
Peter,
I'll agree with that statement.
Teresa,
Agree.
Raylene.
I agree.
So that's a unanimous on number 2. Number 3, substantial justice is done. The applicant is replacing an existing home in disrepair with a new home and septic system. I will agree with that statement. Terry,
I agree with that statement.
Peter,
Nay, I disagree.
Teresa,
I agree.
Raylene.
I agree.
So
Because it's
that's
a larger home. It's outside the footprint. So that's not accurate.
Peter, please be quiet.
Well, do you want to be accurate or you want to just rubber stamp them?
Discussion period is over.
Okay, let's all
I
do
am
whatever we're told.
reading the application as presented. So that is 4 yes, 1 no. Is that what you got, Joanna? Number 4, the value of the surrounding properties will not be diminished. I agree with that statement.
Of
Harry.
course.
I agree.
Peter,
Nay, I disagree.
Teresa,
I agree.
Raylene,
I'm going to abstain because I don't have any idea how it will affect.
Really? That's the truth.
Peter, please be quiet.
Aye,
So
aye,
that's
Captain.
like 3 yay, ayes, 1 nay, and 1 abstention. And the last criteria. Literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would result in an unnecessary hardship. The existing parcel was created in 1958 with only 47 feet of frontage, and since that time has had a home on the parcel. If the parcel was required to have the frontage currently required in the ordinance, this parcel would be non-buildable along with many other parcels in town. I agree with that statement. Terry,
I agree.
Teresa,
I agree.
Raylene,
I agree.
did I say you, Peter?
No, but I disagree. They already have a house. There's no hardship.
Okay, that sounds like 4 yays and 1 nay. And then we have the second part of the 5 criteria. The current use is residential and the proposed use is residential. Therefore, the proposed use is reasonable. I agree with that statement. Terry,
I agree with that statement.
Peter,
Nay,
Teresa,
I agree with the statement.
Raylene?
I agree.
So that's 4 yays and 1 nay. And Joanna, could you give me the tally? But it sounds to me like we have approved the 5 criteria, and just to be formal, I'm going to move on to a vote on the motion as made by Teresa. Teresa, could you read it again, Teresa? It's already been seconded by Terry, I believe.
Bonnie, I didn't write it down.
Joanna did, I bet.
No, she changed the wording.
Right, because I didn't print off the new thing, but I will say my motion was to approve the application from Elmer Lai on 49 Shore Road, map 68, lot 42, to remove and replace an existing residential home on a lot that has 47 feet of road frontage where 200 feet is required.
So this is a vote on the road frontage request. I will vote in favor of the motion, which was already seconded by Terry. Terry?
I vote in favor.
Peter?
Nay.
Teresa?
Aye.
Raylene?
Abstain.
So you have 3 yays, 1 nay, and 1 abstention. Mr. Frankowitz, can you come back? So your application has been approved. And I'm required to warn you that anybody has 40 days to appeal our decision. So if you begin your project before those 40 days are up, it's on your nickel if anybody does object.
Okay.
Just means it might get delayed or.
Got some permitting to do anyway, so. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Okay. Next before the board. Bylaws and rules of procedure. Joanna, do you want to speak to the updates that we have received or the requests for updates? Are there things that we need to vote on or discuss?
Yes. Let me share my screen with you. Okay. Okay, so I have naturally changing the date, changing the his and her to their.
Mm-hmm.
It's mostly that type of editing, it appears. Changing the 144 hours to 5 business days instead. And that was it. And then I got one recommendation, which I think I sent to you guys. For some reason, I didn't put that one on the internet though.
So, can I just interrupt you?
Sure.
I'm just looking at chat, which came to me privately, and I think it was Kevin who was KB. Do you need me tonight? I see a different screen from 2 months ago. I bow out since you don't need me. He must have stayed here until Peter arrived.
Yeah, I did reply to him.
Okay, so you saw this.
I did, yeah.
Notes to me privately. You get to see my private stuff.
Oh, no, I got a separate one as well privately.
All right, just want to make sure you saw that.
Yeah.
So he wasn't able to watch our public hearing?
He
Or he
could
wasn't
have
able to-
watched,
He
he chose
was
to not
able
stay
to.
on.
He chose not to.
Well, it sounds like he got one from 2 months ago. So I wonder how many other people that might have happened to.
Nothing happened to him. He came to be he's the alternate on the board. If you hadn't showed up, he would have been a member of the board. Since you did show up, we didn't need him, and he went off to his own life.
Okay, well, I guess you know.
Okay, can you all see the ZBA bylaws edit?
You know, When I put the chat up, it took mine away. I'm sorry to say.
No, that's okay. I see what happened. Give me a moment. Resume share. Stop. Okay. So then we got this edit suggested. Can you see it all?
I can now.
Okay.
Is there a way to magnify it?
Um,
I can't.
Yes, you pinch on it, Peter. You just put your fingers on it and slide it open.
Put my fingers on it? No, my screen doesn't do that.
Are you using a computer? Or an iPhone?
Yeah, it's a computer.
Okay, because then you may need to zoom in if it's on the computer.
how's
But
that?
with an iPhone, I just slide it open.
Is there a Zoom?
I just made it larger. Can you see it better now?
Much better, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Yes.
So this is a proposed addition to our bylaws. Is that correct, Joanna?
Yes.
Do you want us to discuss this? Do I want us to discuss this?
Well, it was my proposal if you want me to discuss it.
I think we've already heard you discuss it already tonight. I'm asking if anyone else wishes to comment. I'm not in favor of this.
Didn't we used to do this when Mike Rizzo was the chair? We all would do site visits before we would make decisions. I mean, how can you not? We don't know even the neighborhood unless you do a site visit.
Let someone else speak, please.
No, you weren't letting me speak, and I'm the presenter of the proposal, so I think you're out of order.
You are very redundant and you're wasting
Well, yes,
time.
it's because of free
You
speech.
I've been on the board for 12 years. We have never.
We've always done site visits
We have
until this
never-
year.
Stop interrupting me.
Well, I
We
was
have
speaking.
never, stop interrupting me. We have never required it. People may do site visits. Joanna usually gets their permission. Not everyone might give us permission. Number one, it's up to the landowner to agree to allow us to visit. We may drive by if we feel that we need to, but we're not required to in any of our bylaws to date. And I don't think we should be required to. There's plenty of cases that come before the board where it's not really necessary. Raylene.
I would like to propose, I think required would be impossible for many board members to do under certain conditions. I think highly recommended or some similar language would certainly be reasonable to include so that people do have, and I don't know what the history of the board is. If there was a general consensus, if not a requirement, in previous years, it'd be interesting to know how that went and how it contributed to the decision-making. If it was not required and just one or two people did it here or there, that's probably not very valuable information. But if there was a consensus on the board at one time that highly recommended was a standard and many people did it and found it useful, I think that would be useful information, at least for me, who's relatively new to the board, who's very new to the board.
I don't know how long Terry has been on the board. Can you tell me, Terry? Have you been on longer than me?
I think I've been on about the same time as you, I think.
Okay, so Terry and I came on probably 13 years ago. We have never required this. We have never had a consensus to require it. It has always been an option, and there are some situations that an individual board member might live next door or might be so familiar with it they don't need to go by. And this is very strong wording. And it has always been up to the board members individually to go and not go. I've been to several with Mike, so I mean, he lives next door to me. We used to ride to most meetings together. And we went to some together. There were plenty that we didn't go to. So that's the history. No, it's not.
I think language of recommended would be reasonable. It doesn't require anybody to do anything, but it encourages people to do so in the interest of best decision.
Well, that's at the very least that's a proposal. I mean, if we're going to vote on this tonight, we're going to vote on what's presented to the board, which is Peter's language. This is what he wants. I see him trying to interrupt me, but I think, Joanne, you have it muted. So I hear a weird noise. So
I was saying, number one reason to do a site visit is to show you care. I mean, if you care, you're going to go into the neighborhood and look at the site. Number two is, how can you make a decision without information? Isn't the best way to get information on a neighborhood is to visit the site? And my concern is some members of this board have a philosophy of approving everything, and that's why that's why they don't do site visits. They're just going to approve every single thing regardless of how much harm it's doing to our neighborhoods, because that's his philosophy. And I think that's very bad for our town. I think if you do a site visit, it's the only way to know what's going on. And once again, I would call on any of you to do a site visit to Whites Grove Road. Drive up and down it, looking at where we've made decisions. I know some people, Terry, doesn't care, but I would wish other people would. Just care enough to do a site visit.
Peter, I'm quite familiar with these lots. The one on
I've
Short
never
Drive,
been down here in decades.
50 times doing jobs, and I know exactly where Mr. Lou is, so I know exactly where their lot is.
Well, things have changed in 15, 17 years, and you need to take a drive down these neighborhoods and see what you've done. See all the trees that have been cut down, and all the neighborhoods that have been cleared, and all the houses that are being crowded together on these quarter-acre lots, year-round houses. So once again, I think the last year, something happened last April that has changed our ZBA.
why we're the same board. Raylene is the new member. That's what happened.
Well, no, and then there was a secret meeting, but I won't go back to that at this time.
Oh, for God's sakes, Peter.
But that changed the way this board operated, that one meeting
Well, it was a bit of legal advice, wasn't it?
with the town administrator.
That is not the issue in front of the board tonight.
Well, that's why this issue is being proposed, is so that we care about our neighborhoods. Let's do a site visit.
Peter, can I just say
know
this one?
what we're doing.
Peter, let me just say this one thing.
Please.
The fact that the other four of us are on here still, having to listen to you rant every single time, is enough indication that we care about our town.
No, you don't even
Because I'll
visit the
be quite
neighborhoods.
honest, because I'll be quite honest with you. Listening to you rant over and over again, especially when tonight is my anniversary and I'd rather not be listening to you rant, is enough to show that I care about this town. And I'm tired
Well,
of you
you're not
indicating
acting
that
like
we
that.
don't care.
These decisions are not helping our town. They're hurting us.
What's the status of doing bylaws edits? Are we just discussing them at this point? Are we making decisions about them? Do we need to put
Well,
them more formal?
At some point, we need to have some bylaws that are working bylaws. I think Joanna would agree with that. If somebody wishes to add this, then it has to be done by motion, I would say.
Okay, well, I would make a motion to amend it and take out the word disqualified and then just put they shall be strongly encouraged, or something like that.
Not to vote, you mean?
No, strongly encouraged to do a site visit.
Let me
instead of
just,
required.
let
It
me,
is that way.
Then I suggest this goes back for revision and representing and be presented again with new language.
Joanna,
Yes.
aren't our bylaws supposed to be adopted in April?
yes.
Yeah,
So
they can be adopted at any time as a zoning board because the zoning board doesn't have to meet every month.
Okay.
So we're
Um,
operating under the old ones for right now.
All right.
So we can send this back for revision, or we can vote on it tonight. Did you make a motion? Heather?
Peter made a motion. I didn't hear anybody
They
second
changed
it.
the wording of it, so we don't really know what it says now.
If
Can
you
I
want,
just-
I'll rewrite it and submit it for the next meeting.
Okay,
And I'll change the requirement to a strongly encouraged.
let me just suggest to you that, just calm down a minute and listen to me. I don't believe that you can change the bylaws that would affect the voting, because people need a quorum. There needs to be a quorum in order for us to have a meeting, and this would throw a monkey wrench into that if 2 or 3 people didn't go do one of your drive-bys that you insist upon. And how are you going to enforce it? Who's going to know if anybody drove by or not?
Well, the discussion will make it pretty obvious who's done a drive-by and who hasn't.
So
I know every meeting.
you don't make
It's pretty obvious.
a lot of the time, so.
Well, like I said, last meeting, we approved a subdivision on top of a wetlands and nobody even flinched.
It was an aquifer. You don't even know the difference.
No, it was a wetlands. The
No, it
aquifer's farther
wasn't.
down. The wetlands, there was water on the surface. That's a wetlands.
Peter, I happen to drive by that land all the time, so don't go saying none of us drove by it and know anything about it.
No,
You
you're gonna see
don't
some
know all
houses.
our lives. You are speaking for everybody and you shouldn't be. You should speak for
No, I'm just
yourself.
speaking for me.
No, you're not. You're throwing out generalizations about everybody. And that is
No.
speaking for everybody. Yes, you are. So please stop. Speak for self.
Okay, well,
Okay? And number one, the other thing is that we don't really need this edit in here because it is, as part of a zoning board member, our duty to understand the plans before us. So if we don't understand something that's in there, then we need to be doing a drive-by, which means as you get your packets from Joanna or you look at them up on the website, you should be looking through them prior to the meeting and not at the meeting. And if you don't understand something, it is your duty to go and look at it. We get approval from most people who give the applications in, saying we have a right to go on the land. That information would be also on the website, which gives us permission to either enter their property or not and just drive by. I find it offensive that you're trying to mandate something when, as a member of the board, I already feel it's my duty. I don't need you or anybody else telling me what to do.
well, you're saying you can look at a piece of paper or a plan and envision that neighborhood? I just strongly disagree. Teresa, you know better than that. You've been on the
I am
planning
not-
board for years.
I am
You know
not
you have
saying-
to see more than a piece of paper to make an educated decision.
Shut up for a minute. I am not
Here's
saying
me.
that.
You
What I
shut
am-
up.
What I am saying to you
Happy
is,
anniversary, by the way.
yeah, well, that doesn't count right
Lucky
now.
guy.
What I am saying is when you get an application and if you're not familiar with the property, then you would do a drive-by, but I
You have
know
to.
somebody.
You
Right.
can't be familiar with it without doing a drive-by. That's my whole point.
But if you know the property, you don't need to do it specifically for the application. That's all we're saying.
Well, you haven't been doing it around Pawtucket Lake. I know that much.
Speak for self, Peter. Speak for
Peter.
self.
Peter, you're making assumptions about people's thinking and behaviors.
Okay, who's done a drive-by on any of these Pawtucket Lake properties? Raise your hand. Any of you? Lee? One.
I'm not answering your questions.
No, of course
I've
not.
had plenty of cases. But what I find
Know it all.
objectionable about you is that you continually interrupt people. You're rude to applicants when they come. Oh, of course, they're in for making loads of money. Those kinds of comments have no place here. They really don't.
Well, we did that variance last month just to
Do
save a
not
developer
interrupt
money.
me. Do not
There's no
interrupt
public
me.
interest in that last variance that we
Do not
passed last
interrupt
month.
me.
That was a
You
boon to a
need
developer.
to be respectful to the people who come before this board. You
Well,
don't know
then let
who
me
they
finish
are.
my statements.
Please be quiet. You don't know what their motivations are,
No, just mute me. It doesn't make any difference
Peter,
anyways.
like you're doing now. You interrupt everybody and you're rude to everybody, and nobody likes that. I don't like it. I don't like being dictated to by you because you think we don't make decisions that please you. That's what
Well,
you're
the
doing.
town prefers the go along to get along types. I'm sorry. I'm not that type.
Okay, it's now Raylene's turn to speak. She's had her hand up for quite a while. Be quiet.
Well, I'm a new member to the board, and I think of the zoning board as what I would call a semi-professional organization, for lack of a better term. And I think that it behooves everybody who is on the board to behave in a professional, listening, attentive fashion without interruption, because we don't get anywhere when there's constant back talk back and forth. So I would suggest that each person, one at a time, with permission from the chair, no one is told to shut up or other rude language. And I don't know why we would have to have that kind of a discussion amongst people who are adults and responsible for making decisions relevant to the town's well-being. And I've only been on this a short while, but I find it highly dysfunctional, interferes with good decision-making, because people don't make a statement one at a time, state their point, and move and listen to it.
Raylene, the only reason I said shut up is because he was not
No, no.
listening to me. Many times he was not listening to me, and it was to be a shocker. I don't normally tell people to shut up, and I'm sorry if you were offended by that. It wasn't meant to offend you. It was meant to get Peter to be quiet.
I'm not talking specifically about tonight. This has happened almost at every meeting I have been at.
I have
And I'm
never
not-
said shut up before.
I am not speaking to individuals. I'm speaking to the individuals as a member of the group, not as individuals per se. So I didn't mean to speak to you, Teresa. I was not. I was saying this is behavior and interactions that I have observed, and I think that they don't contribute to good decision making.
I do not disagree with you.
Pardon?
I do not disagree with you. And
Oh,
I
they said you
believe
disagreed. Now, really?
that most members of the board are respectful and speak through the chair. They don't just jump in and start screaming at somebody. I think we need to all observe manners, common sense, and common decency so that our board meetings remain civil. You can disagree and still be civil. Wrong with disagree with each other.
I would like to bring us back to the bylaws to ask, we have a proposed amendment. Does this require a motion? Does this require a recommendation?
No, I think we have agreed to take it up at another time.
Thank you.
I think the writer, who is Peter, agreed to read it. And we can now return to the rest of the bylaws. Joanna was going through. Did you go through all of the proposed changes, Joanna?
Yes, I did show all the proposed changes, and they were minor changes. I saw that Raylene just had her hand up though, ma'am.
Me too.
Oh, I know. I'll wait until this discussion of the bylaws. I thought we were done with the bylaws.
No, because we have to adopt them or not. I guess we can adopt them and still amend or add to them at a later point. Yes, Joanna?
We can do that.
Yeah. So I think would you like to get on with voting on the bylaws as written?
Bonnie, the only concern I have with doing that is if we do decide to follow through with any form of Peter's amendment, then it would mean redoing them over again. To me, it makes more sense to approve them all in one evening and have them written up and then printed and submitted at one time.
Well, I
If
don't.
Peter can't have them for our next meeting, then I think we just go forward and ex-nay his proposed amendment. But if he does have them at the next meeting, to me, it just makes more sense to go through everything at once rather than bringing the bylaws back up at the next meeting again.
It would seem to me that we could make an amendment without voting on the rest of them. We could vote on an amendment without redoing the whole thing.
We could, but if, to me, it doesn't make, I guess I don't see any sense of voting on them tonight and then bringing them back up as another item, agenda item for the very next meeting to deal with this edit.
I would have to edit them, print them, post them, and then edit them, print them, post them again if there's another change.
That makes sense, Teresa. Thank you, Joanna.
I think it makes sense to say that I would suggest that we make a deadline, that anyone who has any edits, have them in by a set deadline. Once that deadline has been met, then no new edits can be, no new major edits except for minor revisions to wording that we might do in a meeting. Because drafts have to go out and then we respond to them, and then.
I forgot, I didn't realize we had to post them before voting on them. So yeah, that makes perfect sense to do it all. So let's just say that tonight we've gone over the proposed changes and we're awaiting a further possible to discuss and decide on. Does that sound right?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay. So are there any, we can leave the bylaws. Are there any updates further? Raylene, is this about the bylaws?
This issue has come up several times over several meetings, and we keep saying we'll talk about it. And I don't hear a reasoned conversation. And I don't know if it requires a separate meeting or it can happen. I think it should happen at a regular meeting with people on the community being aware that the conversation is on the agenda. And that is the issue that Peter keeps raising about the public interest. And I think it's an important one for the zoning board to address as a basis for decision-making. And I was just looking at some zoning board material around public interest, zoning board laws, regulations, and there is a literature out there about it. And I think that it keeps cropping up in one way or another. And I think a conversation that is announced to the public and hearing perspectives would be useful, and close it for now. And use whatever we come up with as a basis for future decision making. Not as a rule, but as a guideline, as a way of thinking about the zoning board and the issue of public interest, which is addressed in the 5 things, and individual interest, which is also addressed in the 5 questions.
So let me just, for clarity, ask you, are you talking about changing the procedure that we use for our hearings,
No,
or having an educational discussion about the public interest? So that's
not just the public interest, but when I talked, when I've heard discussions about it, it's like, well, there's the zoning board and those are the rules and we give exemptions or we don't. But one of the items in those exceptions does address the public interest. And that's a very big term that can be interpreted in 20,000 different ways. And I think just having not a consensus at all, but a discussion about what does the term public interest imply in relation to the zoning board. And I think it would be good for the public to attend and know about it. So I think your comment around an educational session is perfect. I think that's exactly what it needs to be.
that was
Not limited to the zoning board.
It was a question, not a proposal from me. I was trying to understand what you're proposing.
Right, and I think that's a very good interpretation.
So you're suggesting that we have an education session that doesn't necessarily have a bearing on our procedures, which I do not think we can change. There already is a mechanism for alerting the public by notice. It's by mailing, certified mail that goes to all abutters. It's by posting everything. That's how all bodies, public bodies, do their posting. I can't hear you because you're muted, but then that would be nothing that we could mandate that board members attend, number one. And number two, I think there's More than one side to the public interest. Peter,
I agree with that, and I would also enjoy a discussion of what is a hardship. Is it the hardship having to do with the configuration of the land, or there seems to be economic hardships we're given variances for, and I don't think that was the original intention of that. So once again,
I don't recall ever giving an economic.
well, we did it last month. We gave a developer a $15,000 economic hardship. He didn't want to spend the money. We said, don't bother. And I don't understand why that was within our hardship, definitions. I mean, these people are paying $220,000 for these quarter-acre lots on Pawtucket Lake, and they come to us expecting us to approve a variance so they can build a year-round house on these tiny lots, which clearly hurts the lake, clearly hurts the town.
Okay, Peter.
But that's a hardship because they paid $220,000 for that lot. So to me, that's not.
This hearing tonight was not to build a year-round house. There already is a year-round house there.
Well, they wanted to expand the size of it tonight, and they're going to be.
Rebuild
They
it.
can hear their neighbors talking already.
You don't know that they want to expand the size of it?
Yeah, if you looked at the
No,
plans.
That's not in our purview. Our purview is the road frontage, period.
Well, it's the public interest is our purview, whatever it is. So yes. So if they want that variance, they have to answer those 5 questions affirmatively. So that's been my point all along. But
They have to answer them in a way that board members agree with their.
and we all have our own definition of what's the public interest. So Raylene's comment is very correct there. Because I think me and Terry almost have opposite opinions.
And Terry, in your opinion, is not correct. That's a problem. Terry's
Yes.
entitled to his opinion, as Raylene is entitled to her opinion, as I'm entitled to mine, as Teresa. And so it's not just your opinion that everybody else has to go
Well,
with.
we're supposed to be using facts to make these decisions, not just opinion. So yeah, once again, I think it would be helpful to have more clarity on what the public interest is and what a hardship is when they're asking for a hardship variance.
Well, I know that there are trainings on these questions. There are land trainings that Joanna advises us of. Are we required to go to them? No. There's no law that makes us. It's a good idea to do it. It's a good idea to know something about what you're doing. But I don't think that anybody can be made to. When you're an elected official, there's very little regulation that can regulate your activity.
Well, it's supposed to be the voters, but they have no idea what's going on.
Your procedures are regulated, your process is regulated, but by statute, not by other people, not by you. You can't dictate what we all think and do, which is
I can
kind
just
of
voice my opinion.
what it seems like you're doing a lot of the time, which is why people get annoyed, myself.
Well, I've been a public interest advocate my whole life. I'm not going to stop now.
Okay, do we have any further business? Or does anybody, Raylene, do you want to work on some kind of proposal for a public interest session? I honestly don't know where I will find time for such an issue before the November election. I am busier than you can imagine with elections. All election officers are busy. We're not, most of us, paid, but we're putting in lots and lots of hours this year. So between that and my regular life,
I don't know that this is an urgent issue, but I do think that it's an important one. And I think that having a public discussion, it may end up in a screaming match, but if we have a moderator who keeps things under control, I think it could be a fruitful discussion, because I don't think people really know a lot about the zoning board until they need to use it.
I don't think most people have time to think about it, honestly.
Probably not, but it can say we did it at least.
Like people who complain about the selectmen, they do an awful lot, and most of us don't know half of what they do.
I raised it as a point of discussion. It doesn't require a vote, I don't think. We can think about it and bring it up at a later date. I just wanted to toss it out there.
Okay.
I'm done.
Any other updates, Joanna, that you have for us?
I have another application in the works, but nothing else on my desk, so we shall see what happens for August.
Okay. When's the deadline for that? It's like in a week? And the deadline is so that all these people can be notified, by the way, Peter,
Correct. July 27th.
so that all the public can know about these hearings.
They've been coming in droves.
Yeah, they did when we were meeting in person too.
Yeah.
The notice also includes the zoning link and phone number and the zoning ID number. I mean zoning,
Zoom, you mean
Zoom
the-
ID number and link.
That's for our
So,
August meeting, you mean,
What's that?
for our August meeting.
For all of the meetings that I've been sending out that are during the Zoom time
Okay.
that we've been having, the remote meetings.
And in each meeting, Joanna, right, has its own special number. So the meeting ID number is unique to each time we meet, correct?
Correct. Yep, so nobody is using the wrong one. And it's on the website, it's on the TV. I mean, I don't know how else I can make the public more informed. And I'm not knocking on everybody's door. And that wouldn't be allowed anyhow. So I don't know how else we can make it more public notified. And they didn't come in when we had our meetings before either. We had a few contentious ones where we had the public arrive, but otherwise in person, it wasn't any different than it is now. So anyway, yes, July 27th is the next meeting. And one more note before Peter gets to talk, if you allow him, is that we can meet in person if the board desires. That has been taken care of in the conference room again, so that's up to the board.
And can we meet on Zoom? Do
We
have
can continue to meet by Zoom. The emergency order has been continued, so we can continue to meet by Zoom, but it is not required.
Is that something we should vote on?
I believe that the board should agree as a board or not. Yes, I think it should be a unanimous. If there's even, that's my opinion, you guys decide. But even if one of you says, I don't think we should, then I don't think we should meet in person.
I don't think we should meet in person.
Okay, well then there's.
I'm going there, any free staters.
I think the statistics on the virus, which is the reason we're meeting by Zoom, are, if anything, they're just going up all over the country. And I don't think by August they're going to be any better.
Fine. The select board is meeting in person, and so therefore I'm required to let you all know that we can meet
I
in
appreciate
person
it.
as well.
I mean, does anybody disagree? I mean, meeting by Zoom is easy and anyone can attend our meetings. I've been at Zoom meetings where there are 200 or 300 people. Definitely.
Wow. They all get a little square.
Yep, along the top. Can you guys see me? Because I can't, I can only see Zoom. I don't know what happened to me, but I'm,
Yes, we can see you.
okay. So, yeah, the Secretary of State's office has had a lot of meetings with election officials. It's like we disappeared. Can you hear me?
You're still on. I stopped the share screen. That I was hoping that would change things for you.
So, no, it's now just Zoom. I can't see anybody, but that's okay.
Okay.
So, no, I mean, it's possible for anyone to attend these meetings. It's easy. It's cheaper than going there in person, and it's definitely, you know, safer.
Okay.
For people who have compromised immune systems or whatever. Just being inside is not as safe as being outside, and Zoom is safe, the safest of all.
Anyways, I just have one more brief thing to say, and I'm sorry I'm so objectionable or abrasive or whatever, but I will ask you all once again to take a ride down Whites Grove Road and you will understand my outrage. Doing a site visit to Whites Grove Road will educate you on
Peter?
what our decisions are doing. So I'm asking you to do an educational site visit to Whites Grove Road. Drive all the way down it and see the changes we've had in just the last 12 months due to our decisions, the ZBA's decisions. Please take a ride down Whites Grove
I
Road.
didn't see you objecting to any of the decisions on Whites Grove Road, and I know
Well, I
there
most certainly have. I voted against half of them because they were bad decisions.
I'm talking asking for a second hearing. I'm talking about going to court. You haven't done any of that.
Yeah, I get a lot of money to go to court.
Well, you can always ask the board within 30 days or 40 days for a rehearing. You
No.
can do that
Get the
either.
best justice money can buy.
Well, if you're gonna complain, don't complain when you're just sitting on your butt, not using the.
I'm
pump.
asking you to become educated as to what your decisions are doing to our neighborhoods. Do you
I-
care? That's the question. Do you care? I know the answer.
No, you don't. You're
None,
asking.
none of you have driven down Whites Grove Road. I've been asking you for the last 6 months.
You
Not
just-
one of you have come down here.
I have been down Whites Grove Road.
When?
None of your business.
Hmm.
None of your business, Peter. You
Well, then you
don't
don't.
like to interrogate me or other members of the board.
Well, I'm asking you, as a board member, to take a ride down here. See
Yeah, but
what our decisions are doing.
You're mad about one thing that went on down there, and you have
No, all over the
failed.
place.
You failed in your responsibility to complain.
I'm doing the best I can.
No, you're complaining. You're barking up the wrong tree, and
Well,
you
the
know it,
ZBA,
I know it, and everybody else knows it.
I suggest that this,
well, let's see how much you care. Take a ride down here.
is
Bring your
now
bathing suits.
forward. Peter, you've made your statement. We have heard you. Thank you.
Waste of breath.
Anyway, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. I can't see anybody.
So
So,
move.
Joanna, do you have anything further to bring up before the board?
The minutes of the May 19th, 2020 meeting.
Oh, thank you. I knew we forgot.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the minutes of the May 19th, 2020 meeting as amended, because I did make some edits to Joanna.
I second it.
A motion has been made and seconded. We're going to vote by voice because I can't see any of you. I vote aye, yes. Except
I vote aye.
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 is there one missing?
Peter's missing.
He signed off.
Peter disappeared. Was he at the May whatever meeting?
I can pull those up.
Yes, he was.
Well, just say he didn't vote or whatever. He didn't abstain either, but he must have abstained.
Left the meeting.
That's okay. The,
No, but I mean, just state, not present.
Yeah,
Right.
that's exactly what I'll do.
it's called manners. Excuse me for saying that, but really.
Madam Chair, can we adjourn now?
We may, if the board agrees. Do I have a second?
Thank
Second
you.
that.
Bye, everybody.
All those in
Aye.
favor, say aye, aye.
Aye, aye.
Thank you. Thank you, Joanna.
Thank you. Take care.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.